Okay, YouTube, there's a lot of talk about the Autel MaxisysPro, the 908, the battery failures. So I'm going to show you how I put new batteries in my Maxisys. First of all, had to take it apart, obviously, remove the four corners and all of the screws that hold it together. Incidentally, these screws have a right and a left, which I didn't realize when I took them apart, so you might keep them separated. It'll be easier to put back together for you. There's 6 little tiny Phillips head screws on the back. You can see them there. They're under some little covers. Those two right here have a security tag on them, so you'll avoid the warranty if you take them out. There's this little screw under that flap there. When you get them all out, you can separate the two halves. Comes apart quite easily. And there are 3 ribbons that connect the front half and the back half. I just disconnected 2 of the 3. The other one was long enough to let it lay over. Now right there it says Autel battery module, and there's some screws, half a dozen or so screws that hold that what says it is a module, which in fact is not a module, just a simple plastic cover that is covering the batteries. There is a tiny circuit board attached to the top of the batteries. I unplugged it right there. Very narrow. It's as long as both batteries are, all the way across the top of them. Now, incidentally, I opened this up a week or so back to figure out what's going on in there and get batteries ordered. When you open yours, if it hasn't been taken apart, those batteries are going to be really taped together well. There's some amazing tape. Took a little bit of doing to get the batteries exposed to that point. They're also held down by double-sided foam tape along the edge. I'm going right under it there. The batteries are flexible, by the way. They're not rigid. So I'm basically separating that tape. It's very strong, and you need to be a little bit careful that you don't break the housing, the plastic of the unit. I'm also being careful that I don't bend the batteries, fold them in two with that circuit board attached to the top of both of them. But with some work and some prying, as you can see, it does indeed come loose. And there is the batteries with the circuit board attached. I suspect that circuit board is the battery charge module. Prevents overcharging. As I mentioned, they have some amazing tape holding that together. There's my new batteries. I'll get one closer to the camera a little bit so you can see what it was. Incidentally, I bought those batteries off of off of Amazon. They were $20 a piece, delivered. So now I have to separate the old batteries from the circuit board. I wanted to test the voltage on the batteries just to make sure. And wanted to make sure I hooked up the the new ones correctly. As the batteries are sitting there, the upper left of both batteries is positive, the upper right obviously negative. So wanting to separate the batteries from the circuit board without doing any damage. So they're spot welded, there are little tabs, so I'm cutting the tabs off. When I was putting this video together, I thought I had sped this portion of it up so it wouldn't be quite so boring, but apparently I didn't. So you get to watch the whole thing at straight speed. That one tab was a little bit hard to get into. But there the tabs are cut. Just tape holding that circuit board on now to the battery, so got a little razor and cut the circuit board off. There's the old battery pack. Now get the new batteries and get ready to attach them. As I mentioned, I got them off of Amazon. There's the part number. 3.7 volts. A little higher amp hour rating than the batteries that came out. The batteries that came out were 5500. These are 8000 milliamps. So tinned the contacts on the circuit board. Tin the contacts on the leads coming off the battery. You can see I've already got two of them soldered on. They are now attached. So now simply a process of putting it back together. The batteries are just a hint taller than the batteries that came out. So as I was putting it back together, I decided that I probably wouldn't be able to put the circuit board back across the top as it was originally. So I had a little figuring to do on where that circuit board was going to go. I plugged it back in. Incidentally, when I plugged it back in, I heard the computer beep and start coming alive. That was a reassuring sound. Put a strip of good 3M electrical tape across those connections. There's nothing really metal in there. Everything is plastic covered, even the batteries, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I didn't want those batteries going anywhere, so I got some silicone adhesive, some Right stuff. You could use Bond or any good adhesive. Just put a strip down the back of each one, and then again trying to figure out where I was going to put that circuit board. So what I decided to do is just let it float there, a little bit thicker than with that circuit board under it, so that plastic actually retained it quite nicely. So then it's just a matter of putting the screws back on. Making sure positioning that lead coming out of that circuit board so that it wasn't getting pinched by the plastic cover. Then attach my 2 ribbon wires. Nice close-up of my shirt sleeve there. Align the 2 halves of the clamshell, and there you have it. Push the button. Even before I got all the screws back in, I just wanted to make sure that everything was going to work good. As you can see, fired off nicely. That's all I really cared about right then. Wanted to make sure I got it back together, so started putting the corners back on. I realized at that point that that didn't fit very well. I found out that they're rights and lefts, so when you take them apart, save yourself some time, put the rights on the right and the lefts on the left. Put the screws in. Put the Allen heads in for the little protective corners. Turned it on. Voila. Went to the battery setting. It was very happy. And so, hooked the charger up. It showed you have a charging indicator that works like a champ. So there you have it, YouTube. There is how to put a new battery in your Autel